So, Netflix's monster anthology is back, and this time they're diving into the story of the infamous Ed Gein. But you have to wonder, right? How much of what we're seeing on screen is the real, disturbing truth, and how much is just Hollywood horror? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dig into the historical record to separate the chilling facts from the screen fiction.
You know, it all kicked off with one single choice. The show's creator, Ryan Murphy, apparently saw this one photo of actor Charlie Hunnam and just knew. He was looking to capture this specific, haunted quality, and honestly, that creative decision right there really sets the tone for this whole dramatization.
All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the Netflix show itself. Then, we'll dive into the real history of Ed Gein. After that, we'll put them side by side to see what's fact versus fiction. We'll also explore his wild legacy in horror movies, and finally, we'll talk a little about our own obsession with these true crime stories.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the series itself, the show that's managed to bring a nearly 70-year-old case right back into the public eye.
Now, if you've been following this, you know this isn't some one-off series. It's the latest chapter in a really successful true crime anthology. The whole point isn't just to show the crimes, but to explore the question of what exactly creates a monster.
All right, so that's the show. Now let's switch gears and get into the historical facts. To really understand the fiction, you've got to first understand the real man that people in Plainfield, Wisconsin thought they knew.
When you look at his life laid out on a timeline like this, one thing just screams out at you: isolation. Total and profound isolation. He's born on this remote farm, and then, in a very short 5-year window, his whole world collapses. His father dies, then his brother, and finally, his incredibly domineering mother, Augusta. Suddenly, he's completely alone on that farm, and it's in that solitude that his darkest activities really begin.
So what did he actually do? Well, the list of confirmed crimes is absolutely chilling. Officially, he was convicted for the murder of one woman, Bernice Warden, but he also confessed to killing another, Mary Hogan, a few years earlier. And then there's the part that's just so bizarre. He admitted to robbing at least 9 graves, all to collect human remains.
So when the police finally entered his farmhouse back in 1957, the scene they walked into was, well, it was beyond anyone's worst nightmare. I mean, try to imagine finding bowls made from human skulls, a corset made from a torso, and masks, actual masks, made from real human faces. This grim reality is what made him so notorious.
And this brings us right to the heart of our explainer. We know the disturbing facts, so how does a dramatic TV series handle them? Let's do a side-by-side comparison.
The show makes a huge claim right out of the gate, suggesting that Ed Gein murdered his own brother, Henry, years before anyone knew what he was up to. But is there any real evidence for that?
And here is where we see a major split between the show and the historical record. In reality, Henry's death back in 1944 was officially ruled an accident. Yeah, the circumstances were maybe a bit suspicious, but investigators ruled out foul play, and Gein himself never ever confessed to it. So the show's version is pure dramatic license.
The series also tries to connect Gein to another local tragedy, the disappearance of a teenage girl named Evelyn Hartley in 1953. So, was he ever a real suspect in that case?
And again, this is the series taking a pretty big creative leap. While he was questioned about her disappearance, Gein was never officially linked to the case at all. He always denied he had anything to do with it, and get this, he even passed 2 different lie detector tests on the matter.
Okay, the show also introduces a girlfriend, Adeline Watkins, and portrays a pretty significant romantic relationship. But given Gein's obsessive and strange relationship with his mother, you have to wonder how likely that really was. Let's see what the record says.
It turns out the reality was, well, a lot less dramatic. Adeline Watkins did say they dated, but she described it as intermittently for about 7 months. And here's the most telling detail. After she turned down his marriage proposal, she said she had never, not once, set foot inside his infamous farmhouse. That says a lot, doesn't it?
So, how on earth did the horrific acts of one isolated man in rural Wisconsin end up inspiring an entire genre of cinematic horror? Let's take a look at Gein's really surprising and enduring cultural impact.
It is truly staggering when you see this list. 3 of the most iconic villains in movie history, they all trace their origins straight back to Ed Gein. We're talking about Norman Bates, Leatherface, and Buffalo Bill. Every single one of them borrows key elements from this one real-life case. And the inspiration is incredibly specific. The whole psychologically twisted, mother-obsessed personality of Norman Bates, that's a direct reflection of Gein's relationship with his mom, Augusta. And the horrifying idea of making things out of human skin, well, that's where we get the inspiration for both Leatherface and Buffalo Bill. It comes straight from what they found in Gein's house.
So you can see this direct pipeline. A single, gruesome reality was so powerful that it fueled the creation of all these different fictional monsters. It created a legacy in horror that has far outlived the man himself.
So what does it say about us that we're still so captivated by this story almost 70 years later? That brings us to our final section, our own modern obsession with true crime. The show's creators have actually said that the series isn't just about Gein's life. It's an exploration of how media attention and public fascination can turn a murderer into this kind of dark celebrity. In a way, it's a commentary on the very genre it belongs to. And this whole fascination thing, it isn't new. After Ed Gein died, his gravesite literally became a tourist attraction. People would go there and chip off pieces of his tombstone for souvenirs. It got so bad that the stone had to be removed. It's just a stark example of how our curiosity can morph into something, well, something much more macabre.
And that right there is the critical takeaway. Shows like Monster force us to ask some pretty uncomfortable questions about how we consume true crime. We are drawn to these stories, of course, but in watching them, we become part of the very cycle of fascination that the show itself is trying to examine.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. As we keep watching these kinds of shows, this question gets more and more relevant. Where exactly is the line between retelling a historical event and, even accidentally, glorifying the killer at the center of it? It's something to think about. Thanks for watching.